The following video contains spoilers. We suggest watching the episodes alone in the dark. Welcome back to the Twilight Zone, Wolfpack. Catastrophe here, and when I'm not texting dream messages to strangers during my cat naps, I'm talking about outrageously bizarre terror tales. Patreon-sponsored review day, and I'd never thought I'd actually see this, but our request is for an episode of the 80s Twilight Zone reboot.
Oh my god!
Brief recap. If you don't follow us or know this, the Twilight Zone show has had multiple revivals and reboots for the past few decades, and only one that fans universally praise is the 80s gen, since it contains some very creative, cool, and unique spooky stories over the politically charged, topical troubles of the modernized ones. The 80s show was leaning a lot more towards fun and imaginative epic adventures, with many proving quite successful. Naturally, this one being quite favored by our benefactor, thanks to some incredible imagery, relatable life lessons, and a genuinely gut-punching tone. Dream Me Life is supposed to be a more emotional horror story, in a similar vein to The Haunting Hour's Grandpa's Glasses or The Funhouse, yet it actually approaches its art through a more slice-of-life, low-key lens. Tonight's Frightmare was seriously written by frickin' J. Michael Straczynski. Yes, the dude who wrote many Ghostbusters tunes, Thor, and creator of Babylon 5, so you know this has to be good. Just like Wes Craven and Harlan Ellison, JMS got an early career start on this low-budget horror stuff, where he quickly proved his talents by granting his work wondrous magic. I can definitely see fans adoring this one, as it truly does feel right out of the Gen 1 Zone's book, yet does quite a bit more for their characters and capturing the raw emotion of people who suffer in life. If you haven't seen it, this fable touches upon the heavy subject of grief and encountering some of life's hardships during our lowest points, yet also trying to overcome that fear in order to obtain a much needed peace of mind.
And open one's mind eye.
Did it succeed in that endeavor? Well, that's what we plan to find out. So grab your spooky candles and get comfy in bed, cause Kitty Cat's got a supernatural tale for all. Nightmare fuel or sweet dreams. This is our wacky review on the obscure Twilight Zone chapter, Dream Me a Life. So, our episode opens up in a David Lynch movie, where two old seniors go crazy with fear, being scared of a monster attacking. The old man tries to seal the door, but we learn it's a trick. Yep, it was only a dream, which introduces us to our main character, Roger Simpson Leeds, an elderly, antisocial grump suffering from this reoccurring nightmare for many restless nights, as the narrator gives us his stats.
Roger Simpson Leeds, who since the death of his wife 3 years ago, has dedicated himself to living a life in which he touches no one and no one touches him. But now contact has been made, and Mr. Leeds is about to find himself touched by the Twilight Zone.
What?
And Mr. Leeds is about to find himself touched by the Twilight Zone. Touched by the Twilight Zone. Touched by the Twilight Zone.
Touched by the Twilight Zone.
Phrasing?
Touched by the Twilight Zone. That's funny. Yes, I am 4 years old. In cat ears. You can tell it was an innocent time back when this series came out, since some lines like this are way funnier now than the author might have intended.
What'll you be doing, Smithers? Something gay, no doubt? What? You know, light-hearted, fancy-free. Mothers, lock up your daughters. Smithers is on the town.
We quickly establish the life and times of Roger, learning who he is and his backstory. Roger's an old widower living at the most luxurious resting home block you'll ever see. Seriously, this pad looks awesome. I hope I get a 2-story house across from an all-you-can-eat Vegas cafeteria one day. However, his golden years aren't so sparkly, as he's aged into a down-in-the-dumps, cynical jerk who just wants to be left alone after his wife died. Obscure actor Eddie Albert does a decent job granting Roger this jerk-ass wooby type of persona, as while he can be glum and closed off, it's clear it comes from a place of hurting, as he hasn't overcome the loss of his beloved wife for years now. His family has moved on, and he suffers constant nightmares haunting him. He's still stuck in his grief, but is only making himself worse by bottling up his emotions, and prefers to hide from confronting his inner turmoil. A simple character arc where he must overcome his emotional state, but a solid journey to trail. Luckily, he's not flying solo, as his bro Frank tries cheering him up and getting him to open up again. Holy cow, his buddy Frank's actually the douchey critic Fitzgerald Fortune from the classic Zone piece, A Piano in the House.
If you leave me, I'm going to be very naughty!
Yep, the madman musician co-stars in this as a wacky side character, since the later reboots of the saga totally love getting former Twilight Zone stars to return for guest spots on the current shows, as a nice tribute to the good old days. Personally, I always love horror anthologies bringing good actors back, and this is pretty fun, as Fitzgerald gets to show off his acting chops at 70 by playing a nice guy over his previous villain role. Old age can't stop excellent talent.
You're an evil man, Frank. Did I ever tell you that?
Oh yeah, frequently.
Through Roger and Fitzgerald Sr.'s banter, we learn more about the sitch and setup for that sweet payoff. Roger is too jaded to start partying with his bro again, despite his pal's efforts, and he's begun to suffer these new nightmares of a ghost lady haunting him. But it only gets worse when that ghost lady meets him in real life.
Well, aren't you gonna say hello to our new guest, Mr. Leeds?
Yep, this ghost girl is no fake. Through those wacky Twilight Zone antics, Roger learns who she is, and tries to crack the case of what's going on here. His bud informs him that she too is a widow named Laurel Kincaid, played by Mrs. Gray from The Changeling, who apparently brought the wheelchair with her. She lost her husband very recently, and was so hurt by the pain that it got to the point of traumatic silence. She's now immobile, emotionless, and mute because she can't overcome the harsh tragedy. So she's literally locked away within her mind, so she doesn't have to face the real world ever again.
You look in her eyes, all you see is a reflection. Nothing goes in. Blank, pale, emotionless face, and
we discover that there's more behind this Laurel other than a sexy black canary outfit, as more depth is revealed beneath her and Roger. Before the first act even ends, it's made clear that this is a story about confronting depression brought on upon by grief. As Roger suffers from his own drama, it's made clear that he's crossed roads with this gal because both of them are closed off and refuse to open up to others thanks to the tragic loss of their lovers. They have this mindset because they believe dodging the problem is easier than facing it. And therapy is just too easy. Accepting death is a very relatable fear many of us have, but losing somebody super close to you is just as devastating, thanks to the pain of loss, with this episode tackling the inability to move on or accept it. Denial's unhealthy. Both Roger and Laurel are trapped in their own angst, because being alone in their final days is overwhelming, and they just don't know if they can go on without somebody who was a part of their world. While Laurel is shutting herself off from reality, Roger is more so angry still, since he admits that his life was completely broken without his wife, who made him feel alive.
I never knew I needed her so much until she was gone.
This acting's phenomenal. For a low-budget, cheesy horror show, you'd never expect to see the tragic sadness over loss so perfectly captured. This is definitely a tale that knows what it's like to be caught in a deep depression, since both Laurel's isolation and Roger's existential crisis greatly reflect feelings most of us would have if or when we lose somebody we love. Roger actually grows more sympathetic and even likable, since his anger mainly comes from losing his dearest, but him pushing others away is shown to be unhealthy, as it has not made him better, and Laurel is especially a bad sign of what happens when you close yourself off forever, which he risks of becoming himself. Very strong themes I sense in this one.
I would look in those eyes. There was nothing there but love. I felt I could do anything because she believed in me. I wonder what she'd think about me now.
Oh, I made myself sad.
Once more, his bro tries to help Roger by hanging out more, yet the dude still shunts the world out. Unfortunately, he can't stay benched forever, as Roger's pulled into Laurel's game, forcing him to help out with her probs. Round 2. Grandpa re-enters Luigi's mansion to help Laurel prevent a monster from barging in. The Nightmare Realm pays homage to the OG Twilight Zone dreamland from Perchance to Dream, both being these outlandish, surreal worlds of terror, shot in creepy angles, having the protagonists endangered by looming death, containing ominous imagery, and even shot in black and white to convey an eerie atmosphere. It's pretty solid style, but the only nitpick I have is that we never dive too deep into this fun world, as the show could only afford this one set.
Money!
Luckily, the intense shots do add some unnerving mystery to save it. In a shocking twist, Roger and the audience learn that it's real. Laurel is in serious danger, and she needs a strong man to save her from something smashing into her mind estate. This is her psyche, and dark forces are overpowering her. Roger recoils in dread, but burns his hand, proving that it's all real.
When you poop in your dreams, you poop for real.
Yep, Roger is being dragged into his new neighbor's fracturing dreams, and if he can't save her, then he might fall next time in battle. I'm really impressed how he went from live action up to Elm Street so fast. The 80s is bossa nova. Things only spiral out of control as Roger has no clue how to deal with the supernatural shenanigans afoot, and he continues pushing his bros aside.
I've been reading Socrates again. You can tell, can't you?
Frank, Jesus! Can't you ever shut up?
You're not funny anymore.
Scared out of his wits, Roger confronts the broken mute Laurel over what's happening, failing to gain any answers.
That is you, isn't it? In my dream?
Well, what do you know? He's actually talking to somebody of his own free will. Of course, he would pick somebody who doesn't even know he's there.
Funny joke!
Okay, that was a good one. For a tale about heavy tragedy, it sure knows how to lighten the mood. Roger fails to win her trust, but breaks down, warning her that he can't save her. He views himself as a failure, as Roger remembers how he couldn't save his wife, believing he can't save anyone. We now understand how miserable our main man truly is. Roger was traumatized because he was there when his lover died, but failed to make peace with her as her mind was so far gone that she didn't even know he was there. Roger was unable to comfort his dying wife in her final moments.
I held her hand, and I wouldn't let go. I felt her hand tighten on mine. I still don't know if she knew I was there.
I'm ready. Depression.
This is our big explanation as to why Roger is the way he is. He blames himself for not being strong enough for her and cries how he's still not now. He's been cold, rude, and dismissive to others because he doesn't want to get attached to others again due to his fears that he'll eventually lose them like her. He's given up on life. Roger personifies every grieving victim ever, as he thinks he could have done something to prevent tragic events which were out of his hands, and regrets not being there for his loved one, when in reality it was just a series of unfortunate events he could not have stopped. It's a pretty solid character moment that many instantly click with, as like many, Roger lost the will to live a happy life when a part of it was lost. Unluckily for him, he's also not strong enough to stop our grand finale, as he's summoned again inside the nightmare room. Only this time he notices something off, hearing human voices outside the door, and discovers the truth.
You're not keeping somebody out! You're keeping somebody in!
Roger breaks the chain, unlocking our twist ending. The monster is actually Slender Man?
More cakey for Slendy?
Never meet your heroes.
No, that's next episode. The creature is actually Laurel's dead husband, her last memory of him, who's not been trying to break in, but trying to break out, since it's his time to move on.
You can't go away.
I'm sorry.
Please.
I'm sorry. It's been a long time. Too long. You have to let me go.
Yes, this is the big twist. Laurel has been housing her husband's soul sealed away forever inside her mind, to avoid the depressing fact that he's gone, and her husband has been the one summoning Roger into their dreamscape to escape, so he could reach the afterlife and teach them why they should let go and move forward. Mr. Kincaid sought to help his wife move on with herself and go on living for the both of them. Keeping his soul locked up forever and wasting time on a shrine to him is unhealthy. Both she and Roger shouldn't be obsessed with the time they once had with their lovers, but instead create new memories, to not allow death's tragedy to ruin their own final days of fun.
I love you. I want you to go on. I need you to go on. For me, so that my life will have meant something.
Darn it! Now you got me acting all sappy.
Now you know why this is titled Dream Me a Life. Laurel at last says her goodbyes, and Roger learns why he was chosen, because he needed this too.
Why? Why me? I think you know.
Mr. Kincaid walks off into the unknown, and the nightmare ends. Fueled with fresh optimism, Roger accepts that the ghost was right, and finally lives again. He hangs with his bros more often, gains a sunnier attitude, and reaches out to Laurel. The magic of friendship snaps her out of her coma. They become besties, and they both walk off into the sunset together, starting a fun life anew.
Mr. Roger Simpson Leeds, lately returned from a journey into shadow, who found that there is no darkness so complete that it cannot be penetrated by the human heart, or the Twilight Zone.
It's never too early to think about dying.
And that's JMS's PG Elm Street remake, Dream Me a Life. And while it's not scary, it is definitely some sweet dreams fuel. This story's not 100% perfect in my eyes, but it is a totally spectacular, uplifting, feel-good short. The moral they try selling us is excellently conveyed in this supernatural adventure about two lost souls rejuvenating that lust for life again, in the face of a grim pain nearly dragging them down. While Roger and Laurel are far from horror icons, they are totally relatable characters who you gain a feel for, as their tough, jaded exteriors hide the wounded pain of somebody who lost the will to live. The adventure clearly leans less into spooky story, but rather a wondrous cautionary tale, teaching us how we can't let the doom and gloom of life's hardships stop us from finding happiness again. It shows us how life can still be good when you work past the obstacles. You shouldn't allow the bad days to prevent you from achieving your well-deserved happily ever after. Dream Me a Life revels in showing how life should be lived to the fullest. Taking time to overcome your inner demons or bad days is natural, but you shouldn't ever stop trying to form good memories or fun days. How you matter, and it's vital that you don't allow negativity to make you feel worse. Your past should never ruin your future. Roger and Laurel gave up for a brief period, but learned how their loved ones would never want them to give up on living just to wallow in bygone memories or what could have been. Your true friends and family would want you to live, carry on for them, since just because life ends doesn't mean you don't deserve to make the best out of all the time you have. This episode successfully teaches how living big outweighs the fear of death, because making great impacts and having as much fun as possible is what makes life so good. This fable ultimately sought to be this uplifting story where after traveling past the vague ominousness, you gain a heartwarming twist that makes you happy and enlightened on a simple moral of appreciating the good aspects we take for granted, and quite surprisingly, it succeeded. This production's very competent for a cheesy B-movie horror saga, but it truly does understand what made the Twilight Zone work well at this stuff, and does a decent job making it special. The only complaints I have are minor nitpicks. I love the Dream Realm so much, thanks to the trippy style and magical flair, but sadly we're only in it for such little time when it's clearly the funnest element all episode. Not to mention the creepy world feels downplayed, thanks to only spending time in one room, compared to Perchance to Dream, where it felt like a vast haunted funhouse world that was able to make the terror feel larger than life.
Money!
Also, I can't deny the twist of Roger figuring out what's really going on and putting the puzzle together does kind of come out of nowhere. He spends so much time ignoring everyone and running away from his BS that it did feel oddly random and rushed how he solved the mystery so quickly in the finale when he barely knew what was happening. This could have been easily fixed had there been at least one scene of him interacting with Laurel in a closer way or looking into her past, but instead he just figures it out and the ghost resolves everything. It just feels a tad rushed, and like Roger did a bare minimum hero's journey, but the ending of him at last loving life again does make it feel earned. Just some small issues that didn't impress me as much as There Was an Old Woman did. Overall, that does zero damage to the amusement or the emotion behind this tale, since it has many good elements and an optimistic payoff, which does tie everything together. The acting's solid, the imagery's cool, the mystery's pretty shocking, the theme's deep, and the moral is pure Twilight Zone. This is one fable that you'll really stay awake for. So, I grant this episode a gold skull. Not a flawless victory, but it does display all the strengths which made this reboot a favorite among fans. I highly recommend it if you enjoy the more humble, emotional supernatural tales, such as Toy Train or A Stop at Willoughby. Dream Me a Life is a delightful motivational story, which can inspire any downtrodden soul why dreams are worth living. I'm your host, Catastrophe, and I've got to get back on my balloon/casino. Yippee! What the? Huh? You mean that review was all just a dream? Now I gotta get to editing and living.
Find himself touched by the Twilight Zone.